The Black Panther Party are among the most recognizable social and political organizations to have appeared in the late 20th century. Their ideologies, attitude, appearance, and outspokenness against the injustice towards African Americans made them immortalized. But first, let's go all the way back and give some historical context. It's post-World War II, and here's what's going on with black people in America. After the war, black Americans from the South began to start migrating towards cities in the North and West, and they began to start migrating towards those cities because of the corrupt, violent, and horribly racist atmospheres that was going around in the South. But what unfortunately happened was that even though they left the South to escape the racism, they still dealt with a lot of high unemployment, less pay, and terrible housing. Two black men who were involved in this great migration while still being young kids who eventually co-founded the Black Panther Party were Huey P Newton and Bobby Seale. But first, let's talk about Huey P Newton, since he's the one who gets more exposure and is more quote-unquote popular amongst black people and is seen as the true founder of the Black Panther Party. Huey P Newton was born on February 17, 1942 in Monroe, Louisiana. Huey's parents didn't want to live in an environment anymore where lynchings and heinous acts of violence against African Americans were piling up and was a part of the town's history, so they went on and left to Oakland, California. Living in Oakland, California was hard for Huey and his family because his family was very poor, but Huey often states that there was never a day he went without food and water. Young Huey P Newton also got in a lot of trouble as well for criminal offenses like gun possession and vandalism at age 14, and in public school he felt that he was ashamed to be black. He then went to graduate high school without being able to read, but eventually taught himself how to read by reading The Republics by Plato, which he states is the first book that he ever read. As an adult, he attended Marriott College, and after learning how to read, he began to question everything, like race, skin color, politics, social economics, and also began to question why black people are being treated horribly in his community. And then he began reading different books by different authors like Mao Zedong, Che Guevara, Franz Fanon, and Vladimir Lenin. He got involved in Bay Area politics in college and then eventually joined the Afro-American Association, where he met Bobby Seale. And Bobby Seale liked Huey's intelligence and his actions, and he related to the same issues as he did as a young black man, and they became eventually good friends. It's also not a shocker to note that they were both admirers and adopted massive influence of Malcolm X, a black revolutionary that inspired black American people around the country to take a more revolutionary approach. His ideas, demeanor, speech abilities, and intellect gave many black people hope for civil rights. But after Malcolm X's assassination in 1965, black people across the nation were terribly upset, including Huey and Bobby. They were both even more upset after the recent killing of a teenage black kid named Matthew Johnson in September 1966 by the hands of the San Francisco police. Huey and Bobby decided enough was enough and began to take matters into their own hands. In late October 1966, Oakland community organizer Bobby Seale and law student Huey Newton formed the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, a revolutionary political organization with its main goal of protecting black residents in neighborhoods and across the country. First implanting Malcolm X's revolutionary ideas in youth service camps and programs across the city. Huey was a big fan of Robert F. Williams, who was a black man who fought against the KKK back in his day, and his book that came out in 1962 called Negroes with Guns, a book discussing self-defense ideas amongst black people. The book promotes a more self-defense approach and not necessarily a message of promoting violence. Huey was so enamored with the book that he decided to also study the gun laws in California. The book had such a huge influence on him that a quote by Timothy B. Tyson says that the single most important intellectual influence on Huey P. Newton, the founder of the Black Panther Party. Huey P. Newton had an epiphany, and he believed that to separate the Black Panther Party from all the rest of the other black organizations, they would need to gain social and political power. And he had this idea after observing the harsh anger and violence and tension that lived within black communities in the time. In order to purchase the weapons for self-defense, Huey and Bobby began to sell the book Little Red Book to Berkeley campuses for 3 times the price. Bobby even had this to say: "Sell the books, make the money, buy the guns, and go on the streets with the guns. We'll protect the mother, protect the brother, protect the entire community from racist cops." On October 29th, 1966, a man named Stokely Carmichael, who actually coined the term Black Power, came to Berkeley to give a Black Power conference, with Huey and Bobby being in the audience as well. Huey and Bobby witnessed the Black Panther symbol. Wait, no. Not this Black Panther. This Black Panther. They both decided to adopt that logo for their own organization, and boom, the Black Panther name and logo are now in full effect. For the outfits, however, Newton and Steele decided on a uniform consisting of only black shirts, black pants, black leather jackets, and black berets. The Black Panther look is now in full effect. The all-black fashion look and outfit is now forever linked for black pride, black confidence, black dominance, and black intelligence, and most importantly, black power, for black people back then and even still to this day. Throughout the rest of the late 1960s, it became a busy time for the Black Panther Party. On January 1967, the Black Panthers opened up its first official headquarters in Oakland storefront and publishes its first issue of the Black Panther Party Black Community News Service. The newspaper gave information about the Black Panthers, their activities, their ideologies, and exposing the racial struggles of African Americans in the United States. The magazine became nationally successful and gained massive attention. It was the most widely read black newspaper with a weekly circulation of 300,000 copies, with each magazine being no less than 25 cents. The Black Panthers promised protection for black neighborhoods, so they started doing patrols on Oakland police officers while utilizing open carry gun laws. And open carry gun laws gives you the permission to carry guns in open spaces as long as you're not pointing them at someone, obviously. This means that, let's say that you were a Black Panther member and you were confronted by a police officer for carrying a gun in public spaces. You can cite the law and even threaten to bring a cop to court for violating your constitutional rights. To me, this gave the Black Panthers an advantage not just for protection, but also on an intellectual level as well. Shortly after that, more and more members began to enlist in the Black Panthers because of the Black Panthers' bravery and courage to stand against injustice and for their loyalty for black people, obviously. More and more publicity for the Black Panthers came when the rallies in Richmond, California happened, where a black construction worker, when a black construction worker, Denzel Dowell, was shot dead by the police. Denzel's family wanted more assistance and protection since the city officials didn't want to investigate and just ultimately rejected investigating the case. So the family instead called the Black Panthers, and the Black Panthers arrived by educating the communities on self-defense and informing people about the Denzel incident, and inspired so many members of that community that they began to bring their own guns to rallies. But what really gave the Black Panther Party national media attention was on May 2nd, 1967, the protests at the State House at the California State Assembly. The reason why they protested was against the Mulford Act, a new law that would prohibit public carrying of firearms and make it illegal. A law that was actually signed by the then California governor and future president Ronald Reagan the Devil. Newton, early leader of the party, Elridge Cleaver, came up with a plan to send a group of 26 armed Panthers led by Steele to protest against the bill. The event was widely publicized, showing a group of armed black men carrying weapons, which gave the Black Panthers an unfortunate look of being deemed violent in the media, when in reality they weren't. They were just protesting and didn't intend to cause harm on anyone. Following what happened in Sacramento, the Black Panthers released in their second issue of their newspaper the 10-point program, which was the guidelines and overall demands and wants of the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers spoke to all black people in the country, if we're being honest. And the things that they said in the document were, we want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our black community. We want full employment for our people. We want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our black community. We want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people. I believe that this document lays down the footing for black Americans' demands even still after 50 years. What makes me happy about this document when I was researching for this is that they didn't ask in a very compromising way or a very politically safe type of way like how it is now. They stand up, and basically said, we want this and you will give it to us. And I can't do nothing but just admire that. The Black Panthers were now a legitimate organization, having members in the 2000s around the country. And what came with overwhelming support socially began to accumulate a lot of negative attention federally. This disgusting man, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, described the Black Panthers as the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. Just soak that in a little bit. The greatest threat to the country's security. Black people fighting for their rights and actually taking a stand against equality is a great threat. Okay, In July 1967, the FBI enacted heavily on the Black Panthers a program called the COINTELPRO. The program's mission was to, and I quote, neutralize black nationalist hate groups. The COINTELPRO had already been around since 1956, preventing black nationalists and aspired to weaken black leadership and growth. They targeted members like MLK Jr., Elijah Muhammad, Stokely Carmichael, and many more prominent black public figures. The COINTEL operations were very brutal and harsh towards the Black Panthers, and these people worked day and night to try to dismantle and ruin the reputation of many Black Panther members. So much so that a story that I found out in my research is that the COINTELPRO sent anonymous letters to the Blackstone Rangers, which were gangs in Chicago, and sent a letter saying that the Black Panthers were threatening to kill its leader, when really they weren't planning to do it at all. They were just trying to spread massive false information. According to a book called War at Home, the FBI used 5 methods to use against the Black Panthers. Number 1, infiltration. The FBI infiltrated and sent spies out who put on an act deemed to be righteous people and fought for the cause, but were really agents and spies finding out information to use against the party. Number 2, psychological warfare. When I say psychological warfare, I mean basically dirty tricks to spread false and negative stories to targeted groups, and spread misinformation about meetings and events, and also manipulating regular folks like school officials and employers. Number 3, harassment via the legal system. The FBI and police abused the legal system to make members of a targeted group look like criminals. They even planted fabricated evidence to make these horrible false arrests and wrongful imprisonments on black people. They are still probably doing this today. Number 4, illegal force. The FBI would conduct illegal break-ins in black leaders' houses to commit vandalism, assaults, beatings, and assassinations to frighten and eliminate members. Number 5, undermine public opinion. The FBI would deny parties an honest platform, with Hoover designing programs to block leaders from spreading their message, and they even made documentaries to paint the Black Panthers as aggressive and horrible leaders. If you watched the recent Fred Hampton movie that came out a couple months ago, rest in peace Fred Hampton, they did at least probably every tactic that I just mentioned in that video or in that movie. You know, after filming this video, this really exposed to me who the real greatest threat to the internal security and peace of the country is.